have certificate of recognition for Rob Campbell, Brent Ritchie, and Dale Sturdivant. Award of Achievement, 24 credits, goes to Mr. Honeycutt. He receives a certificate and a bronze pin. Achievement of Excellence is 48 credits over a 2-year span, and this goes to Lindell Palmer. He receives a certificate and a silver. Award of Distinction is 84 credits in a 2-year span, goes to Wanda Bailey, Paul Nichols, and Dora Garner. And they receive a certificate and a star pin.
Thank you, Ms. Garner.
All right, moving on to the superintendent's report and information items.
Thank you, and we'll begin this with, again, we'll be asking Ms. Height to come up with the Title IV application.
Mr. Ritchie, Mr. Nichols, school board members, just recently we found out that Mecklenburg County Public Schools was awarded funds for Title IV Part A Student Support and Academic Enrichment Grants. We were awarded $42,409.28. Part of this award has to be shared with private schools. We have 2 private schools that are entitled to some of our funds, and that is Rivermont School and First Christian School. This grant also allows us to have transferability of funds, and so we are requesting that these funds be transferred into another federal program, Title II. And so the information that you have in your packet, we're only required to fill out the first 2 pages, which tells how much we get, and then the other documents that you have are the affirmation pages from Rivermont and from First Christian, saying that they understand that they have the ability to use some of these funds. And then we also have the transferability information in your packet. I apologize that this is on information and for action tonight, but it was that's how quickly we had to get this turned around. So I ask that you please review, and if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them for you. Are there any questions?
Go ahead, Ms. Bailey.
Yeah, I just wanted, is there a breakdown of who gets how much anywhere?
No, not yet. Once this is approved, it will go into a Title II application that's already current.
Okay.
And we add this money in there, and that's the transferability. And then there is a formula that will be recalculated, and then that will be determined how much they get. Currently, in the Title II application, First Christian gets around $6,500, and Rivermont School gets about $2,100. So this will increase their amount, and it's for professional development.
Thank you.
That was my question.
We can't put it in until it's been, you won't
Okay.
know until it's transferred.
Okay.
Yes, sir, that's a great question. Are there any other questions?
Okay, thank you, Ms.
Thank
Height. Item B that we're, tonight is 60 days after we, in August, considered another way of looking at the backpack and the water bottle discipline issues. And you had voted to give the students an opportunity to try those and see over 60-day period what, how that would work out. I know that the information that I've received from administrators and others, I passed on to you for your consideration. It's an item that would need to be voted on tonight based on the way you set it up. And so this is a time that you would have to ask questions or discuss it among yourselves before the vote.
Okay. Does anybody have any Mr. Honeycutt?
I'd like to hear maybe from a couple of the principals, if they would have that opportunity to come and let us hear from them of what they thought is happening at the school with this policy.
Well, we did get something from Ms. Swain, and she's not here anymore, is she?
Yes,
No,
she
she's
is.
over there.
Oh, there she is, okay.
I saw the
Okay.
one from her, but I didn't
sorry.
know any of the other ones.
But does she want to say anything? Or anybody else want to?
No, I know that.
Okay.
Okay.
Y'all don't care either way.
What was that?
Not
They like the water bottles, not the backpack.
Okay.
The faculty at Bluestone, for the most part, was supportive of the water bottles. The only issue they had with it was constantly trying to enforce the rule with water only, cool water bottles, because there were so many students who wanted to bring other containers that are not cool water bottles and other beverages in it, soda, but overall, they were supportive of water bottles. And the only negative that we heard about the backpack was that they were sometimes tripping in the aisle or the restroom on the way to limited spaces. What they kind of
Dr. Carter, Ms. Swain mentioned about maybe compromising to string bags instead of backpacks. Do you think that would help as well? Because to me, that seems reasonable. A lot of less space. I can understand where that would be an issue. So don't change, is what you're saying? We shouldn't change? All right. Right. Does anybody else have any
We-
questions?
We put ourselves in this position because we made it a 60-day trial. And I feel for principals who have to, we're constantly moving your cheese, as Faye Bruce used to put it. And we should have realized that there was going to be a space issue. I mean, if any of us have ever been in a classroom, it's difficult enough for the teacher to get around the room without 25 book bags in there with them. And I think, and I hate to ask you to enforce a drawstring bag only policy, because we've already set the precedent now. They're used to bringing that book bag in there with them, and here we go again. And I think we're in an impossible situation at this point because of that.
I don't think we could make a change. I would hate to make a change in the middle of the year like this. Since we open up ourselves to this dilemma, maybe if we could live with the bags for the remainder of this year to keep students from having to buy the other bags. And yes, Ms. Lax, I understand where you're coming from. but maybe live with it for the remainder of this year, or at least the remainder of the semester, and let them know that this will be coming in the future, and then we go to the strings. And as far as the water bottles, I would suggest that we maybe make it a clear container only, because I would be concerned to have some kind of, not necessarily bottle, but anything that they think that they're bringing water in, but could have other things in it as, so maybe we could say clear containers for water. Just a suggestion.
Okay. And I did want to mention to the principals here to maybe head off this type of thing in the future. I've asked everybody to work through our committees on this, so we don't have these things that just come up at a meeting one night and then vote on them the same night, and they kind of catch everybody by surprise, or a lot of people by surprise, that we move them through our committees, and then the committees then communicate with the people affected, in this case the principals, and then bring that back to the board. Yes, ma'am. Which committee was that?
I think we met on.
Okay. No, I understand that you did that, but I'm saying if somebody wants to bring it back up, that they do.
Talking to us.
Right, I'm talking to, yeah, and I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to us, that we bring it up through our committees, and then we consult with the principals or whoever's involved about the upsides and the downside of this before we take any action on it. That's all I'm saying. Anybody else?
Any other discussion? Well, speaking of committees and the board looking at items and taking, and how to pursue them, we do have a recommendation that we consider opening up for the schools a winter track team. This has come from the athletic committee, and there has been some information that has been sent out to each of you, and I'm wondering if there is some discussion about this as an item tonight.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
did the athletic committee discuss how many coaches would be necessary and where these teams might practice?
That is a problem that we are dealing with. To answer your question, the amount of coaches, no, we did not. But based on what we've had in the past, if we were to go with a number of players, we would have an assistant and a head. That is normal. So I would not expect to have anything any different for this than we would with other sports. And practice-wise, yes, there would be a problem. However, we could circumvent that if we wish to. We could use, I know principals would not want to hear this, but we could use the hallways, or if it comes down to it, we could use the outside on days that would allow that. Just to get the sport in, we would be willing to take some chances. And I would like to hear from the coach, the principals regarding this, because I'm sure that your coaches have approached you. Did you all have any comments regarding this? Because that's what I was basing it on, because when I was there, we had students to run in the halls, and I know that it's not the greatest idea, but yet and still it could solve the problem there as far as for it to run at.
The information that I have is looking at trying to possibly begin something that when we have our new schools, the facilities would be available, and for now it could be a part of conditioning for the spring track, so that they would be in better position.
When does the winter track season start?
It's my understanding it starts in November. Does anybody know for sure? That's just what I don't have a specific date. That would be November.
Okay.
Personally, I think there's a whole lot of questions that we're saying I don't know to, for it to be an action item, to be honest with you. I would be,
I agree with Mr. Campbell. I think there's more information that we need. You know, I'll pull at the track. This
Right.
is just so sudden, and they wouldn't know what schools they could compete with, who's gonna coach it, and like I said, where they're gonna practice. I think there's a lot of details that need to be worked out, and I think we could,
Okay.
work on it the rest of the year and maybe bring it back for next year to introduce.
All right. Well, we can have that motion when the time comes, if that's what. Anyone
Yeah.
else? Sir?
Okay, then I'll move on. It has come to the attention of many of the rural school superintendents that there are unique challenges to rural school divisions. That's no surprise to anybody. But what we've seen is that through the last several years, in particular, significant funding from the state has been cut out that has been of particular benefit to rural school divisions. One such example of that is that in 2009, Mecklenburg County Public Schools, as a part of the state budget, received $826,616 in school construction and operation costs just for that year, and it was an item that had been a part of the budget from the state from years before that. Those monies have not survived some of the recent financial difficulties the state has. So in the years that I have been with you, Mecklenburg has received no funding for school construction, and as we know, it would be something that would be of tremendous benefit to us. Again, that's one example of some of the funding irregularities that we've seen. And this and other issues are some that we feel the need and have the opportunity to see rural school divisions begin to band together for legislative issues, even to the point of perhaps having a lobbyist that would speak to the General Assembly members on behalf of rural schools and rural school needs. Many of us from rural schools in regions 6, 7, and 8 worked together last year when you got the information about the cuts that we had been receiving, and it ended up in us getting some extra funding for school divisions that had lost over 10%. Well, this is a very important legislative session for us. We'll have a new governor at this time. There will be a lot of bills that are focused on education, particularly in light of the teacher shortage and issues that continue to come up, such as bills that seek to do away with suspension in school so that there'll be no questions. We know that's going to come up again. Other programs related to charter schools and whatnot will be coming up again. And so just in the past month, it's another one of these issues that seems to come quickly, and I'm sorry to ask you to consider it for tonight, but just in the last month we have an opportunity to form together with other rural school divisions and get this type of support. There is a cost that's associated with it that we're looking at about $5,000 a year for the 2 years of the biennium. And I'm very much in support of this because I know what it could mean to us. And I'd like to ask you to vote tonight so that we can get in touch with the appropriate groups to get ready for the legislative season for this funding.
Okay.
Yes,
We have a
ma'am.
question.
Mr. Nichols, do you know how many divisions will be, or have been asked to participate in this?
Right now, they're focusing on the rural school divisions in regions 6, 7, and 8. There are, of course, rural schools in regions 4 and in the valley and other areas, but they're in regions 1 and 2, there are more of the cities, and they have formed together into urban areas. One of the concerns that has come up is monies are so tight in many of the school divisions that they are having difficulty even looking at coming up with that type of money as seed. And that's a consideration that we have to take as well. But I think the already from last year, the benefit for us would be well worth it. So, you know, and we have had the conversation in Region 8, and I've heard from, you know, Brunswick and Lunenburg, for example, that have said that they don't feel they have the money to be able to put into it because they simply are too tight on funds. All of us are looking at it, though, and we'll see what the boards are going to go along with. And then I'm taking that information tomorrow to the Region 8 superintendents, and we will see, as we join with others, whether we can get enough throughout the state to be able to do that.
Who would be in charge of our area, I guess would be?
Each of the regions have a legislative a legislative, a person that's in charge for the region of staying in touch with the the Virginia Association of School Superintendents has a former superintendent, Tom Smith, that stays on top of everything that's going on in the legislature. But VAS is not in a position to take sides, if you will, on issues that are related to urban schools or suburban schools or rural schools. So this would be one that would specifically be looking at the rural school programs. And it just so happens that Region 8 has, I think in large part because Frank Ruff is in our area and he represents us, I am the person that is the legislative representative with the Region 8 superintendents to keep the others informed and to keep us informed. Did that answer your question? You look
More
like
time
maybe
in
it did.
Richmond.
Well, no, it doesn't mean that I go to Richmond. It means that I get the report more often from the people that we have go to Richmond for us. Keeps us from having to go.
Anyone else?
That would come out of our admin budget, Mr. Nichols? Admin line item?
More than likely, yes. We'd have to look more closely at that. I'd have to consult after we come back into it and see how we would work with that.
So then at this point, we're not sure where that $5,000.
Well, that's another one of those areas where it wasn't budgeted last year, and if you have a concern, then that's one of the things we have to take into consideration. This one has the potential for return on investment.
Right.
Is the reason that I bring it up.
Those schools that are in our region but chooses not to participate, will they get the benefit of this?
Typically, things that we go for that are for rural schools, all rural schools get the benefit of it.
Even though they did not
Mm,
pay in?
Right.
right.
We can shake.
Yep. Yep. I think that's, some of them are counting on that. Any other questions on that? Okay, in your packet, there is a report from the State Council on Higher Education that came to us from the State Superintendent's Office. It basically is a report dealing with the numbers of students that each of the school divisions have moving on to higher education from one year to the next. We are not at the lowest percent by any stretch of the imagination, but we have a lower percent than the overall state rate, and that's reflected in the report. The report is basically one of many that the state is putting together that is going to be one of the items that is a part of the new assessment and accountability starting in the fall of 2018. So this is just one of the ones that's more easily available to us to put our hands on. I can say that more than anything else, it is a baseline from which we will be needing to put together a plan of how to get more involvement. I'd also let you know that this report is more specifically focused on the numbers of students that are going on to four-year universities, but they're opening it up so that it would look at, in the future, we will look at students that are going on for credentials and things of that nature beyond high school. So I think our numbers will be better based on the fact that we are having much more emphasis on that. But it is for your information.
So what is the most recognized, it says economic disadvantage. Is it basically that our students don't have the financial resources to go to post-secondary?
They're looking at areas that are targeted as being low finance areas.
Okay.
As in other scenarios, particularly with economic development and the Go Virginia, for instance, there is the report that all of Region 8, except for Greensville County, and then moving beyond to the west to Henry County as a part of the Go Virginia Region 3, the annual household income in this region is less than $35,000 compared to the average annual household income of over $55,000. So when they look at things of that nature, they're looking at how many, that's an issue for people going to college. And you'll see that many of those schools are in, again, the small rural areas of the state. And other superintendent's comments, I'd like to bring to your attention that this is school transportation support persons or bus driver appreciation week. And we want to give out a shout out to our bus drivers and all of those that are driving their cars and various transportation opportunities for us. We thank them. There will be a program tomorrow, I believe, for the special treat for the drivers that will be given tomorrow, but we want to recognize them tonight. I'd also like to let you know that the new buses that we have on the new bus lease are supposed to be coming in. There will be 8 of them coming in on October the 23rd, and everybody's excited about that. Now, that's not the activity buses. That's the regular buses. And then I'd also like to recognize that we had a very generous donation from Mr. Jim Moody and his company Vet, a donation of 6 cars, Gary? 6 vehicles that will go into the fleet. They're not new vehicles. They had been used for another purpose, but they're relatively low mileage, lower than some of the ones we have in the fleet right now. And there will also be a couple that will be available for our CTE Automotive Mechanics program to be able to use, which is much, much needed. And we are very appreciative to that for that donation. I want to also point out that we had to cancel the game at Parkview on Friday night because of, in particular, Brunswick County having some significant social media threat. This came after we had other school divisions, 2 other school divisions last week that shut down school for a couple of days because of social media threat. It's becoming a great concern. Just as a follow-up, to my knowledge, whomever is responsible for the threat has not yet been identified, but I've talked with... Oh, oh, good. Well, maybe you can give more follow-up than I... Okay. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you for that. And then I also would just point out that we have a state superintendent's meeting coming up in a couple of weeks, and the governor has called for a special conference to be a part of that related to the critical teacher shortage, and is supposed to be coming out with some ideas about what we will do to face the teacher shortage that we have, and I'm looking forward to getting that information and hopefully bringing it back. And Mr. Chairman, that's my comments for tonight, and if there are no other questions.
Any other questions? Okay. We're on to the committee reports. The Joint Education Capital Improvement Committee.
Our chairman of the Joint Education Capital Improvement Committee is not here with us tonight because he said he had some issues come up with work. But I would let you know that We have our next joint education meeting this Thursday night, October the 19th at 6 p.m. in the Board of Supervisors conference room.
Okay. Anything else?
And that is a closed meeting, correct?
And that is a closed meeting,
Okay.
correct?
The Finance Committee.
Yes, Mr. Ritchie, the Finance Committee met today at 4:30. We had significant input from committees and individuals to our budget committee to work on for this upcoming school year. And I would still encourage you as board members to communicate those things that you feel like are worth funding next year to that budget committee, either by email or through your finance committee. It's not too late. We can still talk about a lot of these issues that we feel are important. We also reviewed the bills, and there was one question that came up in committee about one check that was paid to the National School Board Association. I've been asked by the Virginia School Board to serve on a legislative advocacy committee, Federal Relations Network in Washington, D.C., and the fee for that conference, well, that weekend, we will have time in front of our national legislators, and that particular activity was questioned. The Finance Committee has recommended that we pay the bills as presented. We'll have an opportunity to discuss that at that time, if you guys would like to do that. Thank you.
Okay. The Gifted and Talented Special Ed Health and Family Committee.
We will meet Government School this Wednesday, I'm not away.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Ms. Meyer. CT Career and Technical Education Committee. No report. Athletic Discipline Committee. Any report?
The only thing we had was that we were the ones that were pushing for the track, but however, we will do whatever this board wish.
Okay. Thank you. And the Instruction Committee, this is a new committee, but we've passed on we received some requests from the administration here at central office, and we passed that on through to the Finance Committee and requested a little more information on that. But we're here to help advocate for your needs, so please pass them on to us. All right, now we're at our public input session. Do we have anybody signed up to speak?
No one tonight.
All right. On to action items. Minutes from the regular held meeting on September 18th, 2017. May I have a motion that the school board approves the minutes of the regular school board meeting held on September 18th, 2017?
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Honeycutt, seconded by Mr. Johnson. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes. May I have a motion that the school board approves the payment of the bills?
Mr. Ritchie, the Finance Committee met, and we have made the recommendation that the bills be paid as presented.
Is there a discussion?
Sure.
I object to the bill for $695 to the National School Board Advocacy Institute, mainly because Ms. Bailey was asked to act as a lobbyist for the VSBA and the NSBA. I feel like they should be the ones to pay the $700 instead of Mecklenburg County, because she will be working actually for them. And so that's my objection to the $700 being paid.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like the public to be aware that Mecklenburg County pays for anything involved with the VSBA. When we go to those conferences in November for education and these different seminars, which I find very informative that I'm able to attend these classes, that they do pay for, the county does pay for us to go as well. This follows under the auspices of the VSBA. I think it was an honor that Mrs. Bailey was asked to represent in this capacity, because we in rural Southside Virginia, as all of you know here, we are passed over on some things, and it's good that we here in Mecklenburg will have a voice speaking from this county. So I think it's crucial that we accept it as presented, and that she be allowed to go and be an advocate for Mecklenburg County and other rural divisions in Southern Virginia who have the same missed opportunities. So I think it's great that she was named to go, and wish her all the best.
Anyone? Mr. Nichols, do you have a recommendation or information on this as well? This is,
It is an honor to have
Okay.
Ms. Bailey asked to participate, and I would agree with that. When we have those types of options representing rural schools, they're able to reach out. And I do think, I've asked for support for us to be represented at the state level, to give us more representation so that I may not have to go. And I think that, and I haven't been to any national meetings, it's only been state, but I think when we can get close support, it's helpful to us.
okay.
So what you're saying is, come back to me. I need to put this in the right words, because
Okay.
if I don't, I'm
All right.
lost.
I'm just saying that she was asked by the VSBA and NSBA. And that's what I feel like they should be the ones to pay. When we go to the VSBA conference in November, we're going as a school board from Alton County to represent Alton County. And see, she was selected. It is an honor, I'll agree. I just don't feel like we should pay for her to go for the VSBA and NSBA to be a lobbyist.
I have something else to say. I think it's pathetic and sad that another board member would question somebody that was asked at this integrity of honor and be asked to go and represent this county as a lobbyist, as a show clown, or whatever. They're representing Mecklenburg County, and it is pathetic that somebody would question it. It is falling under the auspices of the VSBA, which this county has paid for numerous years. When we go to the VSBA, it's under the same umbrella, whether it's the NSBA, VSBA, it's all the same umbrella. We're supposed to be on one accord here.
Okay.
And until that changes,
All right, are we,
I'm ready for my question now.
okay?
So, Mr. Nichols, you think it's an honor for an employee of this county to go and represent this county,
Yes,
and that we should pay for that?
yes.
Are you sure that's your answer?
Well, I don't know. You might be coming up with a reason why that's not the right
Maybe it
answer.
should be directed, you were out of the country at the time. Does that help you?
That's an unrelated issue.
Oh,
Yeah, that's something.
That's off the topic.
No, it's not, because the county did not want to pay for Gary Cyphers to go to the orientation meeting in Washington unless the 4-H paid for it.
well,
That's what I'm asking is, how is this different? That is,
Well-
I mean, I understand it's different, but how is it different? I just need some help with that before I vote.
Well, they're representing the, lobbying on behalf of the rural schools, which would, Mecklenburg County falls under that.
Oh, so Gary went specifically for Mecklenburg County as a state representative.
All right, well,
I mean, I think it's an honor, and I think we should pay for it to go. My whole point is that we shouldn't have had to go through the hoops that we had to get Gary to send out there to bring all of what he's going to present next month back to us. That's my issue with this is, if we got a set of rules, we need to follow that set of rules. So, I mean, I'm
Well, that's why we
voting
vote on
yes
these.
Wanda,
that's why,
Right.
because I think it's I think it's an honor for her to go. But we'll move on.
Anyone else?
I just want to add a little bit to that. One of the things that we will be speaking to legislators about are all of the services that we do provide our students here. And many of those services are paid for with federal funds. And when those funds are in jeopardy, the services still have to be provided because they're mandated by the federal government. And so over the last 5 years, we've received over $1 million in reimbursed services from the federal government. And we certainly, and those people that we have in place to provide those services, it's important that we be able to recoup some of those monies back. So I think it's important to continue to ask for those funds, because if we don't ask for them, they may go away. I appreciate the board's support in doing this. It's something I've never done before. We will have training prior to that, so that we are all asking for the same, the right things in the right way. And I'm looking forward to learning more about that whole process. The state of Virginia also has unique things that we lobby for. Not every state is going to be asking for the same thing. So there's some things that I need to learn about that, and I would appreciate your support. Thanks.
Okay, we have a motion then, so to approve the bills. So Madam
We
Clerk,
need a second. Well,
No, we
the
don't.
committee
Second.
did that.
we
so-
don't need a, s-
Oh, that's
Yeah,
true.
Yeah.
we have a motion to approve the bills, so we just need a roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Garner?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes. All right, and personnel, do we have a motion that the school board approves the personnel recommendations?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Honeycutt, seconded by Ms. Bailey. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes. We have, now we, let's see, 2017, 2018 overnight field trips. Are we okay?
Yeah, they were presented last month.
Okay. Can we have a motion, or do we have a motion that the school board approves the 2017, 2018 overnight field trips?
Make a motion.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Johnson, seconded by Mr. Honeycutt. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes. Now, the Code of Conduct Amendment regarding backpacks and water bottles.
We skipped E.
I skipped D. Title IV, I was just anxious. Title IV application. Could I have a motion that the school board approves the Title IV application?
So
So mo-
moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Ms. Bailey, seconded by Mr. Honeycutt. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes. Now, the Code of Conduct Amendment regarding backpacks and water bottles. So,
Make a motion that we move forward, doing the same thing we've been doing at the schools.
so that's to keep the, I just want to make sure that we had this right, since we've heard a
Yes.
lot of different things.
Yes,
and
to
I'm not
keep,
sure
to keep what we implemented 60 days ago, let it move forward.
with the full-size backpacks and the water bottles.
Correct.
Clear water bottles.
Correct.
Anybody else? Yeah, is there, we have a motion to keep it as it was, how we put it in the policy last 60 days ago. So we have a motion for that. Do I have a
Is this
second?
stipulated clear?
Clear water bottles?
This is clear water bottles, backpacks.
Just want to make sure we get this motion exactly right. The clear water bottles, backpacks.
Is this just gonna be for the end of this semester?
Yeah, we need to, for the, You're saying for the rest of the
I'd say
school year?
For the remainder of the school year, and we'll revisit it for next year. I think that's what to keep less confusion. We've heard from the principals, and they've said that, to try to change. I know Dr.
Right.
Carter was one that spoke up. I think we need to keep it in place for the remainder of the year and let us revisit it for next year's.
Okay. Because we heard a couple different things, so I'm not really sure.
That's his motion. Is there a second?
Right, is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Honeycutt, seconded by Mr. Palmer. Any discussion? All right. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell? Mrs. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes. Winter track teams. We discussed this. Did somebody want to make a motion to postpone the vote on this?
I would like to make the motion that we postpone the vote until we have more information.
We have a motion to postpone the vote, and seconded by Ms. Garner, seconded by Mr. Johnson. Roll call.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
I abstain.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Abstain.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes. We have a motion on the Rural School Division Support Program. Can I have a motion that the school board approves the participation in the Rural School Division Support Program for 2 years at the cost of $5,000 biannually?
So moved.
No second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Honeycutt, seconded by Ms. Garner. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes. Okay, reminders. October 23rd, Reality Store at Parkview Senior High and Bluestone High School. November 7th, Election Day, Professional Development Day. The 15th through the 17th is the VSBA Annual Convention. The 20th is the regular school board meeting. And the 22nd through the 24th is the Thanksgiving holiday. Schools are closed. Now we're to board member remarks. And I'll just start here to my left, I guess, with Mr. Honeycutt.
Yes, it was.
Start on this side. Ms. Garner, would you like?
Is that all right with you?
That's fine.
Ms. Garner? None? Mr. Johnson? No. Ms. Bailey?
Congratulations to the golf team. That's awesome. And just another reminder to read to your children. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Palmer?
I'd like to congratulate our golf team as well, and also I'd like to say how happy I am that we have gotten the buses for our youngsters, because that's what we're all here for, is our students.
Very good. Mr. Campbell?
Who got to go first? I need to calm down.
I want to say, again, congratulations to the golf team. It was exciting to see their accomplishments this year, and all of the other young individuals that were in here this evening, whether it would have been for the fair or Students of the Month. It just makes me proud to serve on a board where so many students achieve this type of excellence, and it makes me happy to know that I'm a part of a school division like this, and just such great employees, even though we're few and far between in the room tonight. But just know that I appreciate all that you do, and I appreciate your support. And along with Lindale, I was at La Crosse Elementary a few weeks ago, and Mrs. Puckett and I were out there, and I was like, well, that bus sure is smoking really bad. So, I mean, oh yeah, she knows she's got to put a quart of oil in it or something every week. But I was like, that bus is in really bad shape. But just to know that we've got new buses coming, and the activity buses are coming, and hopefully breaking ground on a new school soon. It's an exciting day in Mecklenburg County, so I'm just appreciative of everyone. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Campbell? We're running out of people to go in front of.
Oh, for y'all that don't know, and I'm not going to steal all of Gary's thunder before his presentation. Gary was just in the state of Washington with a 4-H grant that was selected for Mecklenburg County. We were the only county in Mecklenburg, in the state of Virginia, to get this grant. There was only 5 additional states across the United States that got this grant. It's not to Mecklenburg County schools, it's to Mecklenburg County 4-H. I think we've decided to partnership to get the benefit from this grant. The reason I say this is they took 2 students out there. My daughter was one of them. And Microsoft asked them, what is the biggest challenge in your county? And with that being said, this is a 4-H group. What do you think it was? It was that our county is divided. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of East and West. I'm sick of this board not getting along. I'm sick of the Board of Supervisors not getting along. I'm sick of the Board of Supervisors trying to tell the school board what to do. We all live in Mecklenburg County. And for 2 freshmen to go to the state of Washington, everybody else is doing their project on refugees and teaching elderly people how to use computers. And for 4-H, you would think it'd be how to kill the Japanese beetle or something. But 2 of our young children went across the United States and said our biggest problem is that we're divided. I'm sick of it. If we don't start doing something about it, it's going to get worse. There's an important meeting Thursday. I suggest everybody call their Board of Supervisors, their school board members. We have got to have a new facility. Am I happy that it's going to be one? Not really. That was not my main intent, but I compromised. I made the motion for it to go forward. We have got to get this county on track. And this board, and I wished everybody was here, it needs to start here. It needs to start here. And I don't say a whole lot, but when I do, I'm done, so thank y'all for coming.
Thank you. Mr. Palmer, did you have one more?
You know, I had something to say, but after that, I'm not sure. I do want to recognize, in my congratulation and recognizing people, I failed to mention the youngsters that were seniors of the month and also the young folks that won the other awards there. So we want to congratulate all of our students that have done well. So I wanted to make sure we throw that out there.
And all I wanted to mention was, and it's been mentioned a couple times tonight, because I got asked after last month's meeting why we didn't address the new school. And the answer to that is we're waiting on the recommendation from the Joint Education Committee. So they're working they're working on things, and they're supposed to meet this Thursday. So hopefully they'll make some recommendation or update us on what's going on, and we'll move on from there. So right now we're waiting. That's the answer to where it is right now. If nobody has anything else? Got a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye.